A shift is already moving toward you, even if you can't fully explain why your heart feels unusually alert right now. There are moments when the spirit senses something before the mind can catch up, and this is one of those moments. Quiet on the outside, but charged underneath. Almost like the air before a storm breaks. You didn't click on this by accident. Something in you leaned forward, as if a hidden part of your soul recognized a familiar signal. And that recognition matters more than you realize. There are conversations that happen far away from noise, away from crowds, away from explanation. Conversations that don't echo through rooms, but move through realms. And recently, your name was mentioned in one of those places. Not casually, not in passing, not in passing. It was spoken with intention, with weight, with timing. You may not have heard it with your ears, but your spirit felt the disturbance, that subtle pull, that unshakable sense that something is shifting and you're standing closer to the center of it than you ever have before. Have you noticed how the familiar no longer feels safe, yet the unknown doesn't scare you the way it used to? That's not confusion. That's transition. There was a season when being unseen protected you, when remaining quiet was mercy, not delay. You might have thought you were forgotten, overlooked, even bypassed, but heaven doesn't forget what it hides. It only conceals what cannot yet be touched. And the truth is, there were forces that noticed you early, not because of what you were doing, but because of what you were carrying. Some call it sensitivity, others call it depth, but spiritually it was recognition. Recognition attracts attention, and attention attracts opposition. This is why your life never followed a straight, simple line. From early on, you felt things more deeply than others. You noticed moods shift, and others, you noticed mood shift. You sensed when rooms changed. You absorbed emotions that weren't even yours. And for a long time, you wondered why life felt heavier for you, why joy came with cost, why peace felt earned instead of given. But what if that weight wasn't punishment? What if it was training? Picture this quietly. A narrow path climbing uphill before dawn. The air is cold. Your breath is visible. Each step feels intentional. You don't see the summit yet, but something inside you knows you're ascending. That's what this season has been. Not punishment, preparation. And here's where the story turns. Because while you were learning endurance, something else was happening that you couldn't see. Doors you never knocked on were quietly closing. Opportunities that looked good but would have drained you were dissolving. Relationships that could have delayed you were slowly drifting away. At the time, it felt like loss, like isolation, like unnecessary stripping. But now, looking back, can you see how protected you were without realizing it? There are moments when God answers prayers you didn't even know how to pray yet. You were spared from environments that would have dimmed your clarity. You were delayed just long enough to avoid collisions that would have altered your course. And even when you stumbled, even when you doubted yourself, there was a limit placed on how far you could fall. You may call it luck, or resilience, or intuition, but spiritually it was containment. You were being held together while everything else was being rearranged. Do you remember the nights when you felt restless without a reason? When sleep came but rest didn't? When your thoughts wandered toward questions about meaning, timing, and direction? That wasn't anxiety, that was awakening pressure. The kind that builds quietly until it can no longer be ignored. The kind that doesn't explode, but unfold. There's a reason why lately old distractions don't satisfy you. Why surface-level conversations feel empty. Why your spirit craves depth even when your body is tired. Something deeper is calling you forward, and it's not asking politely anymore. But here's the twist most people never expect. Before elevation comes clarity, and before clarity comes confrontation. Not with people, but with truth. The truth about what you've been carrying. The truth about what you've survived. The truth about how strong you've actually become without announcing it to anyone. You've been taught to minimize yourself, to stay agreeable, to stay small, so others feel comfortable. But that season is ending, not because you decided it, but because it's no longer sustainable. Light that stays hidden too long begins to ache. And you've been feeling that ache. You may have tried to silence it. Stay busy. Stay productive. Stay distracted. Stay distracted. But it keeps resurfacing in quiet moments, in pauses, in that inner voice that whispers, there's more. Not more money, not more attention, more alignment, more truth, more wholeness. Have you ever wondered why the very things that hurt you also sharpened you? Why betrayal taught you discernment? Why loneliness taught you intimacy with God? Why disappointment stripped illusions from your faith and left something purer behind? That wasn't random. That was refinement. Fire that doesn't destroy but clarifies. Right now, there's a shift happening in how you see yourself. Old labels no longer fit. Old fears feel outdated. Even old prayers are changing shape. You're not asking for escape anymore. You're asking for understanding. And that's significant, because when prayers mature, assignments do too. This is where many people turn back. When the path becomes internal, faith becomes internal. When growth requires honesty. When excuses no longer work. But you didn't come this far to retreat into comfort. Something in you is already standing up, even if your circumstances haven't caught up yet. Imagine a sealed door in front of you. Heavy, ancient, silent. You didn't force it open. You didn't knock loudly. You waited, and now without warning, the lock begins to turn from the inside. Slowly, intentionally. That's what this moment feels like. Not rushed, not chaotic, but undeniable. And here's what you need to hear clearly. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not catching up. You are arriving exactly when you're supposed to. Timing isn't about speed. It's about readiness. And readiness is something life carved into you patiently. If your spirit feels alert right now, that's confirmation. If your chest feels warm, or your thoughts unusually focused, that's resonance. This message isn't trying to convince you of anything. It's reminding you of something you already knew but forgot how to trust. Because very soon, you will be asked to move differently, speak differently, choose differently, not louder, not harsher, but clearer. And when that moment comes, the preparation you once resented will become the reason you stand steady while others hesitate. Take a breath here. Let this settle. You don't need to rush ahead. The next step will reveal itself when it needs to. For now, awareness is enough. Presence is enough. Willingness is enough. And if you feel something stirring, something gentle but firm, that's not pressure. That's invitation. A quiet one, but a real one. And it's only the beginning. Something changes once awareness settles in. Not the outside world, at least not yet, but the way you occupy it. You start noticing pauses where there used to be noise. You start hearing meaning in moments that once passed unnoticed. That's because when preparation ends, perception sharpens. And right now, your perception is being adjusted. There was a time when you asked for signs. You wanted reassurance, clarity, proof that you weren't imagining the pull you felt. But signs only come when the heart is quiet enough to recognize them. And lately, silence has been visiting you more often, been visiting you more often than mean. Sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes heavy, sometimes sacred. That silence isn't emptiness, it's space being made. Have you felt it? You passed a test you didn't know you were taking. Not a public one, not a visible one, an internal one. The kind that measures character when no one is watching. The kind that asks, will you still choose truth, when it costs you comfort? And you did, again and again, sometimes with tears, sometimes with doubt, but you did it anyway. And because of that, access has shifted. You may start noticing insights coming faster, discernment becoming sharper, moments of knowing without explanation. That's not imagination, that's alignment. When inner resistance drops, flow increases. Flow increases. When fear loosens its grip, clarity rushes in. But here's the part that requires courage. What's opening next will require you to be seen in ways you avoided before. Not for attention, but for impact. You won't be able to stay hidden behind preparation forever. The season of concealment served its purpose. Now comes articulation. That doesn't mean shouting, it means standing in conversations where you once shrank, standing in truth even when it's inconvenient, standing in faith when outcomes aren't guaranteed. This isn't about becoming someone new, it's about no longer hiding who you already are. Do you feel that tension in your chest when you think about stepping forward? That's not fear, it's expansion. Fear contracts, expansion stretches, and stretching always feels unfamiliar at first. You're not being rushed. You're being invited, and invitations can be declined, but not without consequence, not punishment, consequence, because ignoring growth always costs more than embracing it. Take another quiet moment here. Breathe. Let your shoulders drop. You don't need to figure everything out right now. The path will unfold as you walk it. Light comes step by step, not all at once. What matters is that you trust what's already been proven. You've been sustained. You've been protected. You've been shaped with intention. That track record matters. And soon, very soon, you'll realize that what you thought was the end of a difficult chapter was actually the beginning of a deeper assignment. One that doesn't demand perfection, but presence, not performance, but authenticity. If your heart feels steady reading this, that's confirmation. If something inside you is nodding quietly, that's recognition. This isn't pressure. This is alignment catching up with you. The next phase won't look like what you imagined, but it will feel right in ways you can't explain. And that's how you'll know you're walking forward, not in circles anymore. There comes a moment when preparation gives way to responsibility, not announced, dramatic. Just a quiet knowing that what you've been carrying internally is now meant to influence the space around you. That moment is closer than you think, and in subtle ways, it has already begun. You may have noticed that people are responding to you differently, not because you changed your tone, but because your presence carries more weight. Conversations linger longer. Words land deeper. Even silence around you feels noticeable. That's not coincidence. Chihiro, when inner alignment settles, it reshapes the atmosphere you step into. This is what happens after the passing of hidden tests. Authority doesn't arrive as a title. It arrives as gravity. Think back to times when you felt unseen, overlooked, even underestimated. Those moments weren't delays. They were insulation. Protection from being exposed before your inner foundation was strong enough to hold influence without distortion. Exposure too early can fracture what hasn't finished forming, and you were spared that. Instead, you were allowed to develop depth in private. Now, something inside you no longer fits the smallness of where you've been standing. It's not dissatisfaction, it's readiness outgrowing containment. Like a seed pressing against soil that can no longer hold it. Growth always creates pressure before it creates visibility. Have you felt restless in familiar places lately? Not unhappy, just aware that you're no longer meant to remain the same. This is the tension of transition. The old structure still exists, but it no longer defines you, and that realization can feel disorienting at first. When identity shifts internally before circumstances change externally, the gap can feel uncomfortable, but that gap is sacred. It's where discernment is sharpened. You're being trained to move with intention, not impulse. There's a reason you weren't given everything at once. Gradual unfolding protects clarity. If everything were revealed prematurely, fear would interfere, control would try to step in. So instead, insight comes in layers, enough to move forward, not enough to rush ahead. And here's something important. The resistance you feel isn't coming from your future, it's coming from your familiarity with the past. The part of you that learned to survive through caution is trying to keep you safe. But safety and calling are not the same thing. Safety preserves. It preserves. Calling transforms. This doesn't mean recklessness. It means discerned courage. The kind that listens deeply before acting. The kind that knows when to wait and when to step. You've already proven you can wait. Now you're learning when not to. There's been a quiet invitation placed before you, maybe through an idea that keeps returning, a conversation that keeps resurfacing, or a nudge you can't quite ignore. You've felt it, that internal pull that doesn't shout, but doesn't leave either. That's not pressure, that's direction. That's direction, and direction always brings responsibility. You might be tempted to minimize it, to tell yourself it's nothing, to delay a little longer. But understand this, readiness doesn't always come with confidence. Sometimes it comes with clarity and trembling hands. Courage isn't the absence of uncertainty, it's movement in spite of it. Notice how your questions have changed. You're no longer asking, am I capable? You're asking, am I willing? That's a higher level of maturity. Capability can be trained. Willingness is chosen. And you've been choosing consistently, even when it cost you comfort. That's why the next phase will require something different from you. Not endurance, but expression. Not restraint, but articulation. You've spent a long time internalizing lessons. Now they're meant to be lived outwardly. This doesn't mean you suddenly have all the answers. It means you trust the source enough to speak honestly from where you are. There's power in that. Imagine a door slowly opening, not forced, not rushed, light spilling through gradually, illuminating what was once hidden in shadow. That's how this unfolds. No dramatic push, just alignment meeting opportunity. And as that door opens, you may feel exposed in ways you didn't expect. Vulnerability often accompanies influence. When you step forward authentically, there's no mask to hide behind. That can feel risky. But authenticity carries its own protection. What's real doesn't need defense, it carries truth. Have you noticed how you're less interested in impressing and more interested in being accurate? Less concerned with approval and more concerned with integrity. That's growth refining intention. And intention matters more than appearance. This is also where discernment becomes critical. Not every open door is yours. Not every voice deserves your attention. As your sensitivity increases, so does the need for boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They're filters. They allow what's aligned to enter and keep what distracts from draining you. You're not being isolated. You're being focused. Focus is a gift many never develop. It's forged through seasons of saying no when yes would have been easier, through choosing depth over distraction, through honoring inner conviction even when it wasn't popular. And now that focus is about to be used. There may be moments ahead where you're misunderstood, where your restraint is misread as distance, where your clarity is mistaken for coldness. Don't let that shake you. Misinterpretation often follows those who move ahead of common understanding. You're not here to be easily categorized. You're here to be effective, and effectiveness requires alignment over agreement. This part of the journey asks you to trust what's been built in you. Not to explain yourself excessively, not to justify your path, but to move with quiet confidence, knowing that fruit reveals truth over time. You won't need to announce what you're doing. Those who are meant to recognize it will feel it. Resonance doesn't need persuasion. Take another pause here. Let that settle. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not missing anything. You've been moving at the exact pace required to shape you for what's ahead. Timing isn't about speed. It's about readiness, and readiness isn't loud. As this season unfolds, you may find yourself stepping into roles you didn't plan for, conversations that matter more than you expected, moments where your words carry unexpected weight. Don't shrink from those moments. They're confirmations, not coincidences. What's emerging through you has been cultivated intentionally. Trust that. The ground beneath your feet is more stable than it feels. Even if the view ahead is still forming, the foundation behind you is solid, and that foundation will support what's coming. You're not walking into the unknown blindly. You're walking forward with memory, wisdom, and discernment, shaping every step. And soon, very soon, you'll realize that the season of questioning has given way to a season of clarity. Not because everything is easy, but because you finally trust the process that shaped you. That trust will carry you exactly where you need to go next. There is a quiet shift that happens when understanding turns into embodiment. Not when you hear truth, but when it begins to live through you. This is where you are now. The stage where insight moves from thought into action, from internal knowing into visible movement. And this stage carries a different kind of weight. You may notice that your tolerance for distraction has dropped. Things that once entertained you now feel empty. Conversations that used to pull your attention no longer hold the same grip. This isn't boredom, it's refinement. When your inner compass becomes more precise, misalignment becomes uncomfortable. That discomfort is not punishment, it's guidance. You're learning to listen beneath the noise, to sense what isn't being said, to recognize when something looks good on the surface but carries no life underneath. Discernment sharpens quietly, almost invisibly, until one day you realize you can't unsee what you now see. And that clarity changes how you move. This is also where courage is tested again, but in a different way. Earlier, courage looked like endurance, holding on, surviving pressure, staying faithful in obscurity. Now courage looks like visibility, being willing to be seen without performing, to act without seeking validation, to stand in truth even when it disrupts expectations. That kind of courage feels vulnerable. Have you felt moments recently where you knew what to say but hesitated, where you sensed a nudge to act but paused to calculate the outcome? That pause isn't weakness, it's awareness catching up with responsibility. But don't let it become hesitation that turns into delay. There's a difference between discernment and avoidance. You are not being rushed, but you are being invited to respond. Some doors don't stay open indefinitely, not because opportunity disappears, but because timing shifts. When the moment passes, the lesson often becomes harder. And yet even here there is grace. You're not expected to have everything mapped out. You're expected to stay responsive. Obedience often looks like movement with limited visibility. One step illuminated, the rest unfolding as you walk. This is how trust is deepened. There's also something else happening beneath the surface. As you step into greater alignment, old fears may resurface, not because they're returning, but because they're losing power. The mind often protests when control is released. Old narratives try to reassert themselves when new ones begin to form. You may hear echoes of doubt that sound familiar. Who do you think you are? What if you fail? What if you misheard? These aren't warnings, they're remnants, shadows losing their hold as light expands. Don't argue with them. Just keep moving. You're not required to prove anything. Your growth doesn't need an audience to be valid. What's unfolding is between you and the one who shaped this process. External confirmation may come later, but internal peace comes first, and peace doesn't always feel calm. Sometimes it feels steady in the middle of motion. Notice how your reactions are changing. You recover faster. You don't spiral like you used to. You still feel deeply, but you're not consumed by it. Emotional maturity doesn't remove feeling. It creates space around it. That space is where wisdom operates. This is also where leadership begins to emerge, not leadership as control, but leadership as influence. Influence that comes from consistency, not charisma, from integrity, not image. People may start seeking your perspective without you offering it. They may trust your presence without knowing why. That's not accidental. Presence is cultivated, and you've been cultivating it for a long time. Still, this season may require you to let go of certain expectations, especially expectations of how others should respond to your growth. Some will celebrate it, some will misunderstand it, some will quietly distance themselves. Let them. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into every chapter. Some were only assigned to earlier pages. Their role was important, but it doesn't extend indefinitely. Releasing them doesn't dishonor the past, it honors the future. This is also where you may feel a deeper sense of accountability, not from pressure, but from awareness. When you know what you carry, you move differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. Not because you're afraid of making mistakes, but because you understand the impact of your presence. Impact changes perspective. You may find yourself praying less for outcomes and more for alignment. Less for comfort and more for clarity. That shift matters. It means you're no longer asking to be spared from the process. You're asking to be shaped by it. That's maturity. And with maturity comes discerned authority. Authority that doesn't need to announce itself. Authority that doesn't demand attention. It simply exists, steady and grounded. Picture a fire that doesn't rage wildly but burns consistently, producing warmth, light, and endurance. That's the kind of strength being formed in you now. Not explosive, sustainable. This phase may also bring moments of solitude, not isolation, but intentional withdrawal. Time to integrate what you've learned. Space to listen. Silence to recalibrate. Don't fear that quiet. It's not emptiness, it's preparation. The loudest transformations often happen in silence. Have you noticed how certain answers come when you stop searching for them? How clarity arrives when you release urgency? That's because pressure clouds perception, stillness sharpens it, and you're learning how to be still without becoming stagnant. There's a subtle confidence beginning to rise, not arrogance, not self-assurance rooted in ego, but trust. Trust in timing, trust in guidance, trust in the process that has carried you this far. That trust is earned. You didn't wake up here overnight. You walked through confusion, disappointment, waiting, recalibration, surrender. Each step layered wisdom into your awareness. Each delay strengthened discernment. Each setback refined intention. Nothing was wasted. And now, as this part of the journey unfolds, you're being invited to move forward without needing constant reassurance, to act from inner confirmation rather than external approval. That's a turning point. The more you honor that inner signal, the clearer it becomes. Ignoring it dulls sensitivity. Responding to it sharpens perception, and you are learning, slowly, steadily, how to respond. This is not about perfection. It's about alignment in motion. Soon you'll look back and realize this was the season where you stopped waiting to be ready and started trusting that you already were. Not fully finished, not fully revealed, but ready enough to move. And that movement is what unlocks what comes next. There comes a moment when the journey stops feeling like preparation and starts feeling like responsibility. Not the heavy kind that presses you down, but the sacred kind that invites you forward. This is that moment, quiet, weighty, holy, in its own way. You may not feel dramatically different on the outside. Life may look mostly the same. The same rooms, the same routines, the same faces, but inside something is settled, a knowing that doesn't shout, a certainty that doesn't rush, a certainty that doesn't. A calm awareness that you are no longer standing at the edge, you are already in motion. This is where many people become afraid, not because something bad is coming, but because something real is beginning. When the waiting season ends, excuses lose their power. When clarity arrives, delay feels heavier than action. And when inner confirmation becomes strong, the cost of ignoring it increases. That's not pressure, it's integrity awakening. You are being asked to live what you've learned. Not perfectly, not loudly, but honest. This is the phase where faith stops being abstract and becomes practical, where trust isn't just something you talk about, but something you lean on when outcomes are uncertain, where obedience looks less like dramatic sacrifice and more like consistent follow-through. Small decisions matter. Here, operate. Daily choices. How you speak, how you respond, what you allow to shape your thoughts. These things build momentum quietly, but they shape the road ahead more than any single moment ever could. You might notice that you no longer feel drawn to prove yourself. The need to explain fades. The desire to convince disappears. That's not disinterest. It's confidence rooted deeper than opinion. When your identity stabilizes internally, external validation becomes optional. That freedom is powerful. It allows you to love without attachment, to give without depletion, to serve without resentment, to walk away without guilt when something no longer fits. This is also where gratitude deepens, not the surface kind that thanks life only when it's kind, but the grounded kind that recognizes growth even in difficulty. You start seeing how resistance shaped resilience, how silence sharpened sensitivity, how delay protected you from stepping into things before you were ready to carry them. Perspective transforms memory, and as perspective shifts, peace expands. That peace doesn't mean everything is resolved. It means you're no longer at war with the process. You're no longer fighting where you are, you're cooperating with what's unfolding. That cooperation opens doors you couldn't force open before. Some of those doors lead to opportunities. Some lead to responsibility. Some lead to deeper service. Some lead to unexpected connections. But all of them require the same thing: presence, being fully where you are, not rushing ahead, not clinging to what's behind, not splitting your attention between fear and hope. Just showing up, moment by moment, with awareness and willingness. This is how trust is on. You may still have questions. You may still feel moments of uncertainty. That doesn't disqualify you. Doubt doesn't cancel faith. It often accompanies it at deeper levels. What matters is what you do with those questions, whether you let them paralyze you or refine you. You're learning how to hold uncertainty without losing direction. That's wisdom. There is also a gentleness being cultivated in you now, a softness that doesn't weaken strength but tempers it. You understand people differently. You listen more. You judge less. You see pain beneath behavior. That compassion isn't accidental. It's preparation for impact that doesn't harm. Influence without compassion wounds. Compassion without strength collapses. You are learning how to carry both, and that balance matters more than you know. Soon, you may be placed in spaces where your presence brings calm without effort, where your words carry weight without force, where your choices influence others simply because they are rooted in integrity. That kind of influence can't be rushed. It has to be grown, and it has been growing in you, quietly, patiently, intentionally. As this chapter comes to a close, it's important to release the need to understand everything at once. The path ahead will reveal itself in pieces, not because it's hidden, but because growth happens in stages. Trust the next step, then the next, then the next, then the next. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing anything meant for you. What is unfolding in rhythm with who you are becoming. Let that be enough. Take a moment now, not to strive, not to plan, but to breathe, to acknowledge how far you've come, to honor the strength it took to stay open when closing would have been easier, to recognize the courage it took to keep going when clarity felt distant. That strength matters. And now, as you stand here, aware, grounded, receptive, allow yourself to receive what comes next without fear. Let's take a moment to center this with intention. Quiet your thoughts, soften your breath, and let this prayer settle gently within you. May clarity continue to rise within you, not as pressure, but as peace. May your steps be guided with wisdom that feels steady and sure. May you move forward without fear of mistakes, trusting that growth continues even when you learn. May your heart remain open, your discernment sharp, and your spirit anchored. May you walk with humility when things expand, and with faith when things feel uncertain. May you recognize that you are never walking alone, even when the road feels quiet. And may you trust that what is meant to unfold will do so at the right time, in the right way. Take a breath. If this word confirms something already stirring inside you, comment "I receive it" below.